called Who Am I?
Thank you. Okay, how many here have ever been in a job that they didn't like? Anybody? Anybody ever in a job they didn't like? How many people here ever suspected that maybe they were in the wrong field completely, that they weren't doing something that they, like a few people? Okay. Well, that's exactly where I was about 15 years ago. I was an advertising writer, copywriter for many, many years, most of my life, 20 years. And I worked on like websites, print ads, collateral, direct mail. I worked for some big agencies, some small agencies, some agencies you've never heard of. I even worked for myself when I couldn't bring myself to go into the office anymore. And I can't say that it was all bad. There were some fun things. I met some great people, some wonderful, interesting writers, and some very talented art directors who taught me a lot about graphic design. But there was always like this little niggling voice or something on my shoulder saying, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing with your life. This isn't it. When are we going to start having fun? When are we going to start doing something I want to do? I don't really want to do this. Advertising was my father's idea, and so I got into the business. You know, people told me when I was a kid, opposite of me, that I could write, so somehow I fell into it. But I really only used writing as an excuse to get to Chicago and get the heck out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. So anyway, daily for like 20 years I had this, voice in my head. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so I was having a midlife crisis. I was like 45 years old, and I still couldn't figure out what I was going to do when I grew up. And unfortunately, I was already grown up, so I figured I was running out of time here, that I might have to fulfill my dreams in my next lifetime if I didn't start getting my act together here. And my problem wasn't that I wasn't interested in a lot of things. I mean, yes, we could rule out advertising, banking, insurance, marketing in general. These topics didn't interest me. But my problem was that, on Monday I thought, oh, I know what I want to do. I want to be a psychologist. Helping others is going to be great. That's what I'll do. I'll be a psychologist. And then on Tuesday I would be like, I think I'd rather really be an archaeologist. And wouldn't I be, happier doing archaeology? And then Wednesday would come and I think, well, how about teaching one of these subjects? Why don't I be a college professor and teach archaeology or teach English literature or teach, psychology? And then the next day would come and I'm thinking, an astronaut and work for the space program. Big problem there. I have no science or math background and apparently no aptitude for it either. So anyway, I was really at a crossroads, and I kind of felt like that Indiana Jones in the Temple of the Last Crusade, when he's about ready to step off that cliff and there's nothing but air underneath him. Because for me, it was a scary thing to do. Especially since I didn't know what I was going to do. It was very scary to make a career change. I was well established in advertising. I had a lot of contacts. I knew people. I had a decent portfolio, at least well enough to get myself another job. So it was kind of scary for me. But I almost felt too like in advertising. A lot of people, I'm a hypnotherapist now, as some of you might know. I did make the career change. And one of the most common questions I get asked almost on a daily basis is, how did you get into this? How did you get started and become a hypnotist? How did you go from being an advertising writer to being a hypnotist? And it's kind of a longer story, but I found some tools that I found very useful. I found a book called Creating a Life Worth Living. And in there she had some exercises where we had to make a pie chart, and we had to identify ourselves. Like, what part was teacher, healer, academic, intellectual, work with your hands, inventor, so on and so forth. You guys get the idea. So I don't even remember what I came up with for myself. I did this pie chart and I scribbled the lines and I looked at it, and then the next exercise was the really fun one. It said, if you had 10 lifetimes to live, what would you do? And identify what careers you would have. So I had astronauts, like I was having fun with that exercise. I also had science fiction writer, and then I had past life regression hypnotist, because that's what I was kind of interested in, past life stuff. I've been reading it since I was 13. So then they said, okay, take that pie chart and then compare it to all your careers and decide which one of these careers really would use all of your skills and abilities and talents and interests. And I went, Well, I did the list, and I was diligent. I crossed off a few things, and I came up with 2 things. It was science fiction writer and past life hypnosis regressionist. And I thought, well, I've never written a darn thing in my life. I don't think I can go out tomorrow and start making my living as a science fiction writer, as wonderful as that would be. And so that left just hypnosis. And I looked at it for a minute, and I thought, you've had a lot of really bonehead ideas. I do think this is taking the top. You're not seriously considering doing this, are you? And the first thought was, well, I don't know if I could do it. I mean, who knows if these guys make any money? And in Chicago is, you know, and my other thought was, well, people are going to think you're weird. You know, I think, well, you know what? People kind of think you're weird anyway because because my interest in things have always been kind of eccentric. And so I thought, you know what? What have I got to lose? I can explore it. I can, you know. So I actually did. I took a leave of absence from my advertising job and went out to Santa Fe, New Mexico for, you know, a month or two and got retrained and came back here and took the training here. And I started out very slowly. The first year I didn't really do much. It took me about 3 years, I believe, to get my practice together. And by year 3, by 2004, my practice was full time. I moved out of the house and I got my own place, and I work on now what I would call quality of life issues like smoking, weight loss, test anxiety. I've had a lot of writers come in who want to get over writer's block, and procrastination. Of course, public speaking is huge. It's such a big fear, and I send a lot of people to Toastmasters. But I guess I would want to say that I tell a lot of my clients, and I see a lot of people who are also wrestling with this dilemma, what do they really want to do? Because so many people I know that I see are very happy in corporate America. And I tell them, look, if I could do it, anybody could do it. I mean, none of my friends believe me that I would ever make a career choice. They go, oh, yeah, you're bitching about advertising again. We don't really want to hear it. But I eventually did. I eventually did make, you know, the transition, and it worked out really beyond my wildest dreams, because if someone had told me at the time that this really would have worked out, I pretty much thought it was, oh, you'll probably forget about it by next week, and you'll be on to the next idea. But this is something that I actually did do, and I was going to say too that change for me was always scary, like the Indiana Jones, like stepping off, and you know. But just like with him, there was something underneath his feet. That's kind of how I felt with me. I don't know whether I just got really, really lucky or what, but I've been very blessed. It's worked out beautifully, and